योगः कर्मसु कौशलम्.
Hi, welcome to the 16th session in the course HRM for non-HR managers. In the previous session, we discussed the employee discipline and grievances from the management perspective. There are legal provisions which direct the organizations to adopt a procedure for grievances of serious kind. In this session, we will discuss the meaning of grievances and discipline procedures from legal perspective. We will present the disciplinary procedure and grievance procedure guidelines which mandate the employers to deal fairly and consistently with employees' misconduct and complaints for employees about the workplace. We will discuss the legal and behavioral approaches to the issues related to discipline and grievance so that they are managed in a positive way. We will first present the legal perspective on employee grievance. Employment contract verbalizes the expectations and obligations of employees and employers toward each other. Employees' expectation arising from an employment contract become employers' obligations. Employees' expectations arising from an employment contract become employers' obligations, and employers' expectations become employees' obligations. An employee will feel aggravated if his or her expectations are not fulfilled. Same way, the employers may also feel if their expectations are not fulfilled as per the contract of employment. As we discussed in the last session, the power is not divided equally between the employer and employee. Hence, the law is provided especially for protecting employee in case if they have grievances. Introduction and legal framework of grievances. An expression of grievance by an employee is a sign of their discontent with the job or some of its aspects. In labor management relations, it is an oral or written complaint or representation about the matters arising from employment or service conditions. It could also be about unfair treatment by the employers or from violation of any agreement or standing instructions. Grievances may be about real or imaginary injustice in one's employment relation. The feeling of dissatisfaction may be kept within or be expressed in written or oral forms. Legal provisions for settlement of grievances. In 1982, the Industrial Dispute Act 1947 was amended to include Chapter 2B, Section 9C. It makes it compulsory for an establishment with 50 or more workers to have a grievance settlement authority for its employees. The Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946 requires that every establishment employing 100 or more workers must frame the standing order in such a way that there is provision for redressal of grievances of workers along with other rules. The Factories Act 1948 provides for the appointment of a welfare officer in any industry which employs 500 or more workers. The law provides that the duty of the labor welfare officer will be to look after the complaints and grievances of workers along with other responsibilities. The nature and causes of grievances. Grievances are often traced to the organization's policies and their interpretation. The National Commission on Labour noted that the complaints affecting one or more individual workers in respect of their wage payments, overtime, leaves, transfer, promotion, seniority, work assignment and discharges would constitute grievances. The causes of grievances include: first, neglect of individual wage adjustments; second, complaints about the incentive system; third, complaints about the job classifications; fourth, complaints against particular worker or employee; fifth, complaints related to disciplinary procedure; sixth, complaints about condition of works like safety, hazards; seventh, complaints related to service matter which include seniority, promotion, transfer, leave, etc. Eighth, violation of contracts related to collective bargaining. The International Labour Organization classifies a grievances as a complaints of one or more workers with respect to wages and allowance, condition of work and interpretation of service conditions, covering such areas as overtime, leave, transfer, promotion, seniority, job assignment and termination of services. An employee's grievances can be arising out of how an employee's supervisors or management treat them, the condition of service, the nature of job and a host of other organizational factors. When grievance persists, it results into dissatisfaction. Employers understand that dissatisfied employees have adverse influence on organizational performance in form of passive behavior, apathy, absenteeism, acts of indiscipline, feeling of frustration and any such behavior. The grievances procedure. Grievances are human phenomenon and they must be handled in human way. Every employee has a right to present his or her grievances to their employer and obtain their redressal. The following are important steps managers should take as they handle grievances. First, define, express and describe the nature of grievance at the heart of the employee's complaint as early as possible, so that wrong complaint may not be handled and real grievance may not turn up again to please the management. Second, after locating the real issue, the next step will be establishing the facts pertaining to the grievances and collecting the facts and evidence related to the grievance. Third, after collecting evidence, questions related to the issues will be asked to the concerned person. Fourth, after getting the realistic picture of the issue, a list of alternative solutions will be prepared and based on facts, decision will be taken on an impartial basis. Fifth, follow up the case so that it is handled satisfactorily and the trouble is eliminated. In handling grievances, management should display a sincere interest in the problem of employees. In such a situation, even if a grievance is not settled in an employee's favor, the employee may still feel satisfied because he or she had the opportunity to communicate and to be heard by management. Sixth, involving various hierarchical levels like middle and senior management in grievance redressal process provides safeguard against the possible arbitrary or biased decision of the immediate supervisor. It is advantageous for large organization therefore to adopt a formal grievance procedure. The Second National Commission on Labour has suggested a model grievance procedure that can be adopted to suit the requirement of a specific organization. The Tata Iron and Steel Company has model of grievance handling as you can see on your screen. We present the basic elements of grievance management system next. First, there should be a sound and reliable channel which receives and moves a grievance in stages. A grievance moves in an upward stage if the previous stage or channel has been inadequate, unsatisfactorily or unacceptable. There may be 3, 4 or 5 stages. Second, the procedure should be simple, definite and prompt. Any complexity, vagueness or delay may lead to aggravation of dissatisfaction of the aggravated employee. Third, the steps in handling a grievances have already been discussed. Necessary conditions for grievance procedure. The efficiency and effectiveness of grievance redressal procedure depends upon fulfillment of due procedure. We can think of the features of an effective procedure. First, the first is conformity with prevailing legislation. The grievance handling procedure should be designed in a line with the existing statutory provisions. Second, the second feature is that the procedure should be clear. An aggravated employee should be able to understand who the representation should be made to in writing or orally, the time limit for redressal of grievances, for example. Similarly, the redressing authority should be very clear about what is expected from him, what measures he can take, the time limits within which he should restore to an action, etc. Third, simplicity is the third feature of an effective grievance procedure. A procedure with too many stages or too much complexity is self-defeating. Fourth feature of an effective grievance procedure is promptness. It is known phrase in the world of law that justice delayed is the justice denied. Fifth, follow-up is the fifth feature of an effective grievance procedure. The department which handles the grievances should periodically review the procedure and introduce the essential structural change, making it more effective. By now, you know that the redressal or the solution to a grievance depends on the nature of grievance. So, there is no single solution that we can prescribe, but we do present the alternative approaches to handling grievance. As discussed earlier, grievance is indicative of discontent and dissatisfaction among employees arising out of management policies, practices and procedure. It forms a significant part of upward communication flow in an organization and therefore is an important source of feedback to the management on the reactions that various managerial actions evoke among the employees. The grievances, even if biased or subjective, provide useful diagnostic data to management to assess the health of organization, to evaluate the impact of its policies and to initiate corrective actions wherever necessary. Even when the dissatisfaction is not expressed in overt term, it is necessary for management to adopt a proactive approach and develop ways and means to identify the source of dissatisfaction. By not initiating timely action even before the articulation of grievances, an organization tends to lose the productive efforts of a discontented employee. It is unrealistic to assume that a dissatisfied employee will perform his best at work. The feeling of dissatisfaction among employees, whether expressed as a grievance or not, requires attention of the management. Surprisingly, even in large organizations, managers often adopt avoidant approaches and neglect grievances. The problem solving approach to grievance handling has obvious advantages over the formal legally oriented grievance procedure. While it provides useful diagnostic data to management about the state of affairs in workplace, the problem solving approaches also leads to the development of climate of trust, openness and mutual concern between the management and the employees in the organization. We now move to discussion of maintaining employee discipline. The behavior of an employee is at the root of all discipline in an organization. Discipline means conformity to the norms, rules, regulations and expectations of management by the employees. In case of deviation from norms, particularly the formal ones contained in a standing order, which is referred to as misconduct, the management initiate disciplinary action. Discipline is two-way traffic and a breach of discipline on the part of either party will cause unrest in organization. The approach to managing discipline depends to a great extent upon management philosophy, culture and attitude toward employees. A negative approach to discipline relies heavily on punitive measures and in the line with the traditional managerial attitude of hire and fire and obedience to orders. On the other hand, a constructive approach stress on modifying forbidden behavior by taking positive steps like educating, counseling, etc. The concept of promoting positive discipline aims at the generating the sense of self-discipline and disciplined behavior in all the human beings in a dynamic organizational setting instead of discipline imposed by force or punishment. In brief, the approach to the disciplinary action in most cases should be corrective rather than punitive. We have already discussed discipline without punishment in the previous session. In this session, we present the legal perspective which would be helpful when the other approaches fail. Misconduct. Misconduct is not defined either in Industrial Dispute Act 1947 or the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946. The dictionary meaning of the word misconduct is improper behavior, intentional wrongdoing or deliberate violation of a rule of a standard behavior. Types of discipline. Discipline is understood to be of two types: voluntarily or self-discipline or imposed or external discipline. Voluntarily or self-discipline is developed among employees with organizational culture and atmosphere in which subordinates willingly abide by rules which they consider fair. For such types of positive discipline, management follows the technique like motivational activities which include praise, participation and incentive pay policy. External or imposed discipline is negative and relies on punitive measures. Causes of indiscipline are not very difficult to find. A number of social, cultural, economic and political reasons contribute to the indiscipline in organization. Some of the important and common reasons for indiscipline include ineffective leadership, low wages and poor working conditions, lack of opportunities for promotion and growth which create frustration among employees and a feeling of stagnation, absence of any code of conduct to regulate the behavior on both sides, lack of timely redressal of grievances, unfair management policies, defective communication system, lack of workers' education, outside union leadership, lack of motivation from management, excessive work pressure. The punishment for indiscipline may include one or more of the measures we describe. They follow an ascending order of their severity. First, oral reprimand. 2. Written reprimand. 3. Loss of privileges. 4th, fines. 5th, punitive suspension. 6th, withholding of increments. 7th, demotions. 8th, discharge. 9th, dismissal. The procedure for taking disciplinary action. If the standing order of an organization provide for the procedure for disciplinary action, the same should be strictly followed. The punishment may be held invalid if there is any deviation from the laid down procedure. Whether or not there are standing orders, the procedure for taking disciplinary action against employee should follow the principle of natural justice. The steps for taking disciplinary action are: first, complaint against the employee is made. Second, preliminary investigation is conducted. Third, a charge sheet is issued. Fourth, the employee who is charged with indiscipline is suspended while the inquiry is pending. This is called suspension pending inquiry. Fifth, notice of inquiry is sent. Sixth, conduct of inquiry. Seventh, recording of finding by the inquiry officer. Eighth, awarding punishment. Ninth, communication of punishment. It is important to ensure that first, the employee charged should be given an opportunity to present his case, to present witnesses of his own choice. Second, employee should be given the right to cross-examine management's evidence. Third, the evidence presented by the management should be taken in employee's presence. Fourth, no material should be used against the employee without giving him an opportunity to explain. Fifth, the inquiry against the employee should be fair and conducted by an impartial person. Sixth, the punishment awarded should not be out of proportion to the misconduct committed. As we approach the end of this session, we highlight that an effective disciplinary system first is based on through knowledge of the rules, second is prompt in action, third emphasizes fair action, fourth follows a well defined procedure. If you are interested in knowing more or have questions, please access our online content and participate in the online forum. We are closing this session here and we will see you soon. Until then, thank you and goodbye.